2, 1. Here we go, baby. The election special. This shit's crazy. Let's see if we can pull up the Zoom map here. Oh, can you not see me? I'm so sorry. You can't see me. Can you see me now? There we are.
Yeah, I can see myself.
My bad there. I forgot about that. Let me get this Chrome extension going here. There we are. What it's come to, man.
Yes, sir.
So what do you got on the agenda there for us, Mr. Political Science? What you got going?
Yeah, so pretty I can't see, by the way, but pretty wild 24 hours. Yeah. I think the first polls closed about 24 hours ago, 7 p.m.
Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're on Eastern time. We're in the great red state of Florida. I lose you?
That's when it all. I guess we should start with what people expected. According to all polling, I guess Biden. This was supposed to be a landslide for Biden. According to like most swing states, Biden had between a 3 and 7% lead. He even had a double-digit lead in Pennsylvania, which now we're seeing may not be the case. It's pretty competitive there, but we still have a lot of votes in Philadelphia to go through.
Do you how trustworthy do you think the polls really are?
Yeah, so I mean, after the 2016 election, a lot of people got spooked with trusting polls. I mean, at that point, it's like, why trust them? I want to say I'll always take it with a grain of salt. Like, at the end of the day, it's maybe the best analogy is like predicting the weather. Like, you've got a decent idea of what's going to go on. You're not going to know exactly where the tornado hits and what its trajectory is going to be like, but you've got a vague idea of what's going to happen. In 2016, there were a few things that people didn't account for. A lot of people didn't like Hillary. A lot of people didn't like Trump. Those people who normally would have voted Democrat, who may have voted for Obama in the past, saw Hillary and said, you know what? She's going to win again. She probably ideologically is the most like me, but since I don't like her, I'm not going to vote for her, even though because I think she's going to win. And enough Democrats did that to the point that it gave Trump an edge. Another facet of that was there were a lot of people that, like they say, the silent majority of Trump supporters that we didn't know were there. With everything that came with Trump at the beginning, there is maybe a little hesitation to say, hey, I'm a Trump supporter, especially while being polled. So the numbers were a bit understated there. So you couple understated numbers of Trump supporter with a Democratic turnout that may have not necessarily been true because a lot of people did not want to vote for Hillary, and that gives you a perfect storm. And let's remember, it was only by a few tens of thousands of votes in a few swing states, but that gives you eventually what happened in 2016.
I mean, I don't know about you, but 2016. But I know, like me personally, I knew like very few people that were like about Hillary at the time. I knew like way like a surprising amount of people like that were like, yeah, I'm not voting for her. I'm voting for Hillary. Like it was like, I mean, I'm not. I'm voting for Trump. Like it was like, holy shit. Like okay, there's a lot of people that didn't like her. I don't know. I mean, again, we can go into it, but like, I mean, I think the DNC, you know, I think their corruptness came out that election, and no one said anything, and it went again. We're around again this election, but like, you know, Bernie should have been their choice. I think 2 years in a row.
Yeah, in 2016, it probably should have been Bernie. When I talk about like the the amount of people like for Hillary and for Trump in 2016 that maybe isn't as applicable for our demographic. Maybe I'm talking about the average American as a whole, and the average voter, like across everything combined. So obviously, you're going to get certain circles here and there where you're going to get a lot of Trump, a few where you get Hillary. It really just depends.
I don't know. I mean, just Hillary herself is just it's just so much corruption you can take. It's all that's all it comes down to. There's just too much like there's just so much you can take at once. Where you're like, I
Yeah,
don't know how I feel about this anymore.
yeah. I mean, so when it comes to her, like, I mean, there's a level of corruption, but like, I don't know if it's anything that I would consider apocalyptic. What I think it was a level of distrust of, I mean, like, what people think of like the status quo Washington, like, political person, like, who's just, I mean, when you have people in power for generations, it'll spook the voter, and you put that with what people knew of Hillary, and then some
I don't
good
want to.
campaigning.
Sorry. I don't want to focus too much on 2016 because we want to focus on this election.
Yeah,
But I think
right.
we could just sit down to like a lot of people were very. I think she very much ran the same platform as like, oh, another 4 more years of an Obama type presidency, except
Mm-hmm.
it's with me now, and a lot of people were over that. I think that's what it really come down to, and a lot of people don't like her, just don't like the Clintons in general. So that,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of people,
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to lean to that point over Obama. I feel like if Obama ran against Trump, it wouldn't even have been close in 2016.
I think we could
But
agree to that, but yeah,
yeah,
no, just but again, and then they also, it's noted that the DNC picked her over Bernie and skewed it that way, and
hmm
that alone is something that's never brought up but should be talked about because there's a level of corruptness there that's like, and I'm sure it goes on both sides, but it's been exposed on one side more than the other, and that's kind of that's kind of crazy. But although I think they tried to do that with Trump, and somehow he fought off that bombardment.
yeah, I mean, Trump has a very good ability of making things a wash. Uh, I mean, I guess just a example would be the Access Hollywood tape when he said, grab him by fill in the blank." What he did in the debate after was, I mean,
You can't say
most
it if you want.
pundits,
It's on the podcast. It's
yeah,
good.
and
Not that,
then
I know.
yeah, most
Not
people, yeah.
I
I mean,
don't.
just
Maybe you
from
don't know. You don't what you can and can't say, but you're welcome to say
yeah.
whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Well, the grab him by the pussy video. So I think most talking heads on like mainstream media said, "Yo, that's game over. Trump is done." So Mike Pence is coming in now, and it's going to be him against Hillary. What Trump did at the next debate was he got a line of all of Biden accusers and said, "Yeah, I said this, but these women over here, they've got something tangible against Bill Clinton."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's got an ability to do that with all his situations. His best defense, the good offense. He's always on the attack. So I think maybe that's why the RNC wasn't able to really do it. He kind of did that with Ted Cruz. I mean, he really went after Ted Cruz's wife. He did it with Marco Rubio, did it with Jeb Bush. So, and I mean, there's only so much the RNC can do against that.
Yeah, I agree. So, anyways, let's move forward here. Let's get to this 2020 stuff. Let's see if we can pull up the map of the electoral here. It was working like 2 seconds ago. It probably isn't now. There it is. I don't know if you can see it or not, but everyone else can. We got Biden at 260 electoral college. He just took Michigan. He's set pace to take Nevada, and it's gonna be all said and done here. Fucking close ass race though. God.
Yeah, I think it's really close just because of the mail-in ballots, and the it's always going to take a little longer to count them all. I think maybe when it's all said and done, it's going to be around I don't know 290 to whatever Trump has. It's going to, at least from the like electoral college perspective, like he got it pretty handily. But we got to remember, I mean, Biden's winning Wisconsin by a couple thousand votes. They're going to be doing a recount there because it's under 1% difference. Arizona's pretty close.
Arizona
Nevada's pretty
is
close.
is still. They called it, in my opinion, they've called Arizona pretty early.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, I think I'd personally give it to Arizona, but it really depends, like the methods people want to use to do it. I mean, I, I, I guess there's no rush in really calling it. At the moment, Trump's saying that there's like some ballots, like, or not ballots, but votes, like Arizona shouldn't be looking the way it does. But I
I
mean,
mean,
it's kind of hard to tell with him, like
well,
what's just BSing and then what's actually true.
let's put this into first off. There are some polls that still have Trump possibly winning Arizona. This thing should be noted as we're talking right now,
Okay.
which is really weird. I can see if I can find those that I was looking at, which I didn't. Again, I thought when they declared Arizona, they declared it early. I thought they had already had it pretty much reported, but only 84% is in. So that's 15% to go. But if we compared Arizona to Pennsylvania, they're around the same, and Pennsylvania is not called.
Uh-huh.
Which that's why it's
So
weird to me that they called Arizona so early, especially because it's a swing state, like just like Pennsylvania would be.
yeah, so something we always have to keep in mind, we can't just look at percentages and stuff. We need to be aware of what that where that remaining percentage is. So in Arizona, if that remaining percentage is I don't know, and a side like Biden, they expect him to win it, then it's at that point like there's no possibility that Trump's going to get it. Pennsylvania at the moment's a little bit different. Right
So
now,
we
I
can
think
zoom in
they've
here.
got it leaning red. I think it's a toss up at the moment. I think Biden might eke it out though, but you gotta always like be aware of what hasn't been counted yet. So in the case of Pennsylvania, it's all mostly rural Pennsylvania, and if I'm not mistaken, there's about 1 million votes in Philadelphia, which is always going to be heavily Democratic there, and that's when the numbers start evening out a little. So, although there is a percentage, and you might see Trump say 60-40 to Biden right now, if you've got a huge urban area, um, and where mostly it's Democrat, including the city and suburbs, like we see with Atlanta, for example. That's why those numbers can change a little bit. It's not just like the face value numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something. Again, I didn't look until around maybe an hour or so ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Arizona's at 84% polling, and I was just a little surprised by that. But other than that, it does seem like Biden's got this in the bag. We'll see what occurs. How excited are you for the Biden presidency?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's no secret, at least where I stand politically, and I mean, talking. I guess we might as well say it. I mean, um, at least for the Democratic primaries, Biden was towards the end of the pack on who I wanted to get it. I, for the most part, lean a little bit more left, but also I've got a very vested interest in international politics, and anybody who has been part of the apparatus of making a mess of the world in the past few decades, I'm never a fan of. Um, but we'll have to see. I mean, right off the bat, I mean, if we're comparing it to Trump, I think it's obviously a step up. The question is to what degree Biden can actually do any good. If we're looking at the Senate at the moment, and even Congress, to be honest, we got to realize that although Biden is likely going to win this election, and it's 7:30 at the moment, so that's where we stand. We think Biden's most likely going to win. Trump did very, very well with minorities. I mean, an example, at least for us, that most people know is the Hispanic population in Miami. Um, and the Republicans were able to flip a few House seats, and along with a possibility of the Democrats not being able to get a majority in the Senate, that's going to limit the amount of things Biden can do right off the bat. So I'm going to want a little more out of him, especially like where he stands politically. Even then, I'd want some more out of him.
But do you think he can
But
mentally get stuff done? Do you really that's a big thing that's been talked about, like his mental capacity with stuff? Do you think he's
so
mentally there to get this done, or is this just a flush to get him in and then get the one they really wanted in, which was Kamala from the beginning, and then put Kamala up in front?
yeah, so I mean, Kamala I was no fan of either, but she's a healthy portion to the left of Biden. Um, Whether I think he's mentally fit, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he's no great speaker by any means. He fumbles here and there. Do I think like he's got like a degradation of like his actual mental health? I really don't. Maybe just a degree. I think if he's sitting down, he's got time. He's got people around him, people who think like he does. A decent cabinet. It's not like he's going to be caught off guard or he's just like some old man in a wheelchair. I think he's definitely able to do the job. I think it's just at least the optics of it, especially when you're debating Trump. I mean, Trump, I mean, Hillary is by leaps and miles smarter than Biden. She was just not a good person, and she wasn't really able to debate Trump. So when you put a Trump against a Biden, it's always going to be a steamroll. And you look at that, the first question people are automatically going to ask. And even during the primaries, it seemed like this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't say
Kamala
just with
Harris.
I wouldn't say it's just with Trump. I'd say
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
also the
So
entire campaign. He was a little
yeah,
bit. I don't know. It's a little
yeah.
alarming
No,
to me.
he's fumbling words here and there. Here, he misspeaking a few times. There's no doubt he's an old guy. He's not, and I mean that's not to say all old guys are like that. You look at Bernie; he's
I
quick
give
on
him a
his
year and a
feet. He
half,
can
and
speak
they
much.
pull him.
Yeah, yeah, he can speak much better. But I don't think it's really anything to do with like his cognitive abilities. I just think he's just not as good of a speaker, maybe to a degree. But I don't believe like we've got like a corpse sitting in the White House and he's being used as a puppet. I don't believe that's the case.
I think they wanted Kamala Harris for sure. I think they wanted Kamala the whole time, or Kamala, however I say it. I apologize
Yeah,
if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I think they wanted her the whole time, and I think that's why she got the VP choice, and I think that's why they're gonna figure a way to get her in. I think, and
well,
if they
I
do, I think
mean,
that's a pretty slippery slope. If that's the case, I think that's
well,
But
I mean, then I guess the next question is, do you think this is being done by nefarious purposes? Biden from the beginning said he's only a one-term president. He's going to be a bridge to get us back to normalcy. So if Kamala Harris happens to run for president, the next cycle is that like some big bad thing? Like, are they being controlled or something? I don't think so. Do
I don't
they?
get how she's even in
I
the
mean,
picture though. After Tulsi Gabbard just basically destroyed her. Like that's what
yeah.
is
I mean,
shocking to me is that like she got destroyed in the primaries, like horrible, like just
mhm.
destroyed. And then they just pull her out of a hat, like well, this is where we're gonna go with the person that
Well,
lost in the primaries earlier than almost
yeah,
anybody. Like
yeah. So I think
and
there's a bit of
make no mistake, there's I don't think I'd stretch for me to say that there could have been a better vice presidency choice.
Oh, well, I think there were a lot. So
You're
there are
right.
two things that really happened there. Um, Biden, rightly or wrongly, made the decision that he wanted a woman vice president. So right off the bat, you're cutting half the people, if not more, because there are more men in politics
Oh,
than
and I
women.
meant when I say I think there were better choices, I do mean I think there were better women choices than
Yeah, yeah,
Kamala
yeah. So
Harris.
there's a next step. There are many filters that happen. So after he made the filter of I want it to be only a woman, the next filter became a woman of color. And at that point, because you got to realize this has to be tactical. I mean, whether he agree, because Kamala ripped Biden in the primaries as well, um, for race issues, no less, which was a very big deal. Um, but once he puts the filter of it has to be a woman and has to be a woman of color, that limits who you can pick. I mean, if you're just picking from the pool of Democratic nominees, I mean, we saw Kamala only got, I think she was posted around 2-3% during the primaries. Like almost everybody was better than her, at least from a polling perspective.
Oh yeah.
But I think there was a little more going there. And once you do that, I mean, even out of the women, I don't think. I mean, you mentioned Tulsi. I don't think that was a possibility. I don't think there's a lot more going there. I think she was more of an Andrew Yang type. I want to be outside the establishment, or I'm not really a Democrat. There's something niche about me, and that attracts a certain demographic. But I don't think that really is what you need when it comes to winning an election. The next woman was Klobuchar, which is pretty much just copy and paste version of Hillary, except not as smart, but has also done less crappy stuff. She's from Minnesota. She throws staplers at people, and that's about the length that people knew about her. And then the final option, really, that was a possibility, was Elizabeth Warren, and she just is a little bit too left for the average American voter. So, I mean, that leaves you with Kamala, although not good, at least from maybe your perspective and my perspective. If we're looking at maybe winning an election, somebody who might bring, although, like, as I've said, she didn't really pull those numbers in the primary. That gives a little spice to Joe Biden's ticket that might eke him out something or look like he's actually.
But he could have picked, anyone of his choosing. He didn't have to pick somebody that was in the run for president. Is my point. And I'm not, and I wasn't hinting at him picking Tulsi, although I think that would have probably benefited him because I think a lot of people did like her and what she stood for, and the fact that she isn't really part of the establishment, quote unquote. But that's not who I was saying. I was saying that she destroyed Kamala Harris early in the debates, knocked her out right away.
Yeah.
When it was very clear at the beginning that they definitely favored Kamala a little bit. And but that's not what I'm saying should have taken her place. But I do think that he could have picked someone much better. And first off, am I wrong in saying this? I thought she was well, never mind. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt there were better options. Look, I mean, like I said, he wanted this to be like a different type of election. There needs to be, when going against Trump, you have to stamp out who he is with something historic to some degree. So, you know what, a woman VP, that's good enough. I think the only other option, there are a few congresswomen, Stacey Abrams, who lost the governor's race in Georgia, black woman, super articulate, really smart. She was an option, but also at the end of the day, her claim to fame was losing a governor's election. She didn't do anything prior to that. So, I mean, the argument, yeah, there were better people. Yeah, most definitely there were. But I think they're doing the math based on what they're looking for exactly, and certain aspects here and there. It's not because, I mean, if you're trying to garner the most votes, who but Obama is really going to rake that in? Obama, at the end of the day, is always going to be on Biden's side. So it's not like you can strategically pick like someone else who you think might bring in more votes. Obama's always going to be doing that job.
Put Michelle on the ballot as the vice president. It would have been a landslide, dude. It would have been none.
I think that if there were a woman like that I would pick, like in Ishmael's dream world, that it would 100% be Michelle. I mean, that would actually get somewhere, but there was no chance of her wanting to do that, especially after 8 years in the White House. So, but I mean, yeah, if that were an option, then actually, I don't even know if they asked or they really entertained that
I don't
idea, but
I don't think she did. I
I
think
think
she's
that would
gonna
have
run.
worked.
She's gonna
Huh?
run. She's gonna run in 2024.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it because I mean, you never know. It's you can only take so much of being in the public eye, but maybe not. I mean, you look at Hillary; she wanted to go for it, and Michelle Obama's definitely no Hillary.
Hillary wants that
But
money,
people,
bro. Hillary wants that lobbyist money. There ain't no I'm in it for the people about it. It's
yeah,
another 4 more years of money. Let's just bring it in.
well, for Michelle Obama,
No, for the Clintons.
oh, for the Clinton, yeah, I look I
I'm
mean,
sure the Obama's got a little bit of chunk
they're
change from their 8 years,
yeah,
but
yeah. Look, I
whatever.
mean, I wanna for as much as I'm indifferent about the Obamas for to some degree, but I think they're genuinely good people, and I think they made their pretty penny off their book deal, so I think they're satisfied. But
Their book deal.
the Clintons especially, I mean, like Bill Clinton doesn't bother me too much, but Hillary's definitely a media whore, and she got smashed out in 2016. But to circle back around to Michelle Obama, that's a possibility because I mean, we just think because she was the first lady that with that job comes like a certain idea of who she is. But we can't forget that she was just as educated as Obama. She knows about these issues just as much as he does. And I mean, she's actually, I mean, to some degree, beloved more than Obama because Obama had the opportunity to go through 8 years and get criticized as much as he did. But Michelle Obama, the worst thing people know her for is, oh, she fucked up my school lunch in high school. But about other than that, that's about it.
She's gonna lose the young vote pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah.
Moving, it's gonna be gone. Moving on though, I want to know what is it that we going forward. I mean, we're gonna assume Biden's won. I think that's pretty clear right now.
Barring some crazy result here or there, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
But going forward, what is it that we're looking at for the next 4 years? And yeah, I mean, what is it? What do you think we'll see in the next four
Mhm.
years of the political sphere and climate of America? That is.
Yeah. So the Democratic Party to some degree is split. You've got the not well, yeah, maybe corporate and establishment Dems that people know to some degree, the Obamas, but the little bit more moderate, the Wall Street types, the ones that don't really rock the boat too much. And
Yeah,
then
the
you've got the
Pelosi's and
people. Yeah, yeah.
mm,
So the Pelosi types, although she's pretty liberal, she's still that type of person. Chuck Schumer is that type
I
of
was gonna say
person.
Chuck Schumer. Yep.
Yeah, Chris Coons, those type of people.
Governor Cuomo,
Um, yeah,
Meatball Cuomo.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, Cuomo quintessential. I mean, but and then you've got the other side, the Bernie Sanders, the Rashida Tlaibs, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley types, the super far left, really trying to push it. So you have to kind of look at this like an issue by issue basis. If we're talking about climate change, Biden committed to putting AOC on his committee for climate change. So uh, you kind of have an idea of the road forward that he wants to take with that.
Here's my thing that I'm curious about, and I'm curious what your opinion on it is. Is I yes, I think it's very noticeable that the party is split. Um, and they came together to get Trump out. Now, going forward, what the fuck's gonna happen? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's a far stretch to say that because Biden being an establishment that he is
Mm-hmm.
and trying to get things going back to the way they were prior to Trump, I don't think he's gonna make the radical changes that the radical left, or not even necessarily the radical left, but the
Mm-hmm.
split of the left really wants.
Yeah.
And I could see that being. I'm curious to see if the mob will go after him
Uh-huh.
or not. If they're sticking to their principles, they will. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they're going to stick to their principles though, because it's not Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm very curious to see where these next 4 years go because these people want change, and some of it's radical, some of it's not. But
Yeah.
certain things that they didn't like that were happening. Biden doesn't represent that. Again, Biden was
Yeah.
somebody that they put in to bridge the gap, and
Uh-huh.
and that's what I think is very flawed about our system, and we can get into this too because I think it's important. But like
Mm-hmm.
the left, radical left, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
farthest of the left, like
Yeah.
let's be honest, they didn't want Biden. They
Mm-hmm.
definitely didn't. They
Mm-hmm.
settled for Biden because they just wanted
Yeah.
to get Trump out, which
Yeah.
is kind of flawed because it's like it's not who you wanted. Again, we were doing this election
Mm-hmm.
where we're picking two people that nobody wants, technically.
Uh-huh.
And the two-party system is very flawed in that sense. So it's curious to
Uh-huh.
see where this is going to lead us if Biden doesn't do any of the stuff they want. Because if they're
Uh-huh.
sticking to their principles, they're going to get angry. They're going to complain. They should still protest because he's not going to
Yeah.
do. He's not going to do what they want. He's just not. That's
Yeah.
not who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to keep the corporate interests back to where they were. He's going to
Yeah.
get Washington back. Get that swamp filled again. It's a little dry.
Uh-huh.
It's got to get that funds back going.
For sure.
Maybe another war sprinkled in the next 4 years. Who knows? You never know. With some Halliburton stock thrown at you.
So yeah, being somebody who is of the lefty political sphere, I mean, these people are the people that I, I interact with. These are the type of people that I'd say I'm a part of. So I mean, it was a big compromise for me to vote for Biden. Um, I I guess the first thing that people need to note that is Biden of today isn't the Biden that Obama picked to be VP. There has been, at least to some degree, a bit of change. He's not no super radical leftist by any stretch of the imagination. He's still there, but I want to say he might be just a hint to the left of where Obama was now. Whether that's because he truly believes that or he thinks that's where the party needs to go, I think that's maybe the stance he'll take just to avoid the conflict, but also because I think that's what he thinks the best thing to do is when you get somebody like me who believes the things that I do to the degree that I do, and then somebody like you, I guess, for example, or somebody who's independent, you're going to look at Biden in a certain way. Um, I think it's important to really look at what he's been proposing. Like, a lot of people are just looking at this like at a surface level. I think Biden's this type of person. I think that Trump's this type of person. I'm going to vote for that. But they don't really take a good hard look at what Biden is proposing. And when I did that, I found it. I mean, it's not where I want it to be, but it's also farther to where I want it to be than I assumed that Biden was going to be. So something like college. He wants free state college. He's willing to eliminate up to $10,000 of student debt. When it comes to the Green New Deal, he's willing to implement aspects of it. He is. I'm not too sure. When it comes to foreign policy, the U.S. has changed a lot in the past 4 years. So whether he's going to be one of those corporate shills who goes back to the Bush era way of doing things, and not even Bush, the Obama era.
Yeah, I would say it's all of them. It's both.
Yeah,
Obama
I'm
and
not.
Bush. It is both.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but it, I still think he's at least to the best degree of where Biden could be, where he needs to be. Um, I also know for a fact that they're going to hold his feet to the fire. The far left, they said as much. They said we're going to be here because we don't believe Trump, but our next battle is right after Biden's hand is hot from just getting off the Bible is what can we do to get Biden to do what we want, and how can we push him to do and implement the change we want him to. So when if Biden gets elected, we're not positive. I think so. But if he does, there Bernie gets elevated to the head of his commission, where I believe it's commerce, and you get a Bernie who's the head of that department. He might not have won the presidency, but I have to double check exactly which department that is. But that's going to be a scary dynamic. He's going to be able to implement some of the change he wants to, and I think when it comes to at least the environmental aspect, he's going to push it to some degree. And whether they'll tear him to shreds, I'm not too sure. My best guess of what's going to happen over the next 4 years is he's going to be at least able to coast by. Um, Looping back around to what I mentioned about how Trump did, um, it's very unlikely the Democrats will get a majority in the Senate. Chances are it's going to coast around 48, around there, along with the independent Bernie. But we know Bernie always votes on a Democratic line. But I don't think there's ever a situation where they gain the majority. And that being said, when it comes to actually implementing policy, the Republicans, if McConnell stays the majority leader, they're going to be able to at least put a wall on, no pun intended, actually, but the amount of things that Biden can truly do. And I want to assume that the people on the left are smarter than Ishmael talking, and they're going to be able to realize Biden can only do so much. It's kind of going to be like what Obama had, except the reverse. Instead of Congress, the Senate. There's only so much Biden can do with what he has. They're still going to retain Congress, no doubt, but there's going to only be so much Biden can do, and if they're cognizant of that, they're not going to like absolutely tear him, because although the next election seems like forever away, people still need to posture in a certain way, which allows the Democrats to win the midterm in the next election. So they can't just tear into him now. There has to be a level of civility, but they're going to push him as far as they can push him.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be I don't know. I'm just waiting for them to form their own party. I think it's gonna need it's gonna need this, but I'm anxious. I want a third party. As you mentioned a little bit before on your on the tangent we were going on. I am independent. I've never really stated that on the podcast or anything, but now it is known out there. I do go back and forth. It really depends on the issues. For me personally, I'm not someone to go completely left, and I'm not someone to go completely right. It really comes down to the individual issues for me. That is a whole other discussion. I don't want to even get into it because you could nitpick any issue you want and label me. So we're not going to get into that. But just so it's known, now everybody knows. My next question would be, we kind of talked about this briefly, and I want to talk about it as well as what are your thoughts on casting a vote for somebody other than the Democratic or Republican Party?
Third party, you mean?
Yeah.
So it's tough because I mean my answer is going, although like leftist, I mean this puts me back into the two-party boot camp, and I mean if you do that, there's always going to be a level of, well, you're just keeping the corrupt system that we have. You're just part of the problem. I don't know. I'm not. It's something that I'm not too educated on. I mean, I see people like Joe who's running third party now, and I always just see it as I mean it's just a little more cleaned up and polished version of Kanye. If we truly had somebody, I would say yeah maybe, but Bernie tried doing independent. It can't work. I think if you keep two parties and allow, although we have two parties, we got to realize it's still a spectrum. So you got the Bernies who ran as a Democrat, and you've got the Joe Biden's who ran as a Democrat. Although same party, they're two different people. So although in theory we only have two parties, it's not like somebody out there can't really necessarily make a run for it. I believe if I'm not mistaken, Rand Paul ran, and he technically considers himself an independent. So it's not like I think people put a little too much weight on the words Republican and Democrat. I don't think it truly limits you. I think if anything, it's really the people and their perceptions, and maybe not willing to move outside of their bubble when it comes
I
to.
would agree with that, but I would agree that there's a spectrum underneath both. Just as
Yeah.
there's a spectrum in the Republican Party, there's a spectrum in the Democratic Party.
Uh-huh.
But you do fall into that issue of, as you get closer and closer to the election, that spectrum gets narrower, narrower, and narrower, and narrower. Or I feel like I can't even say that. Smaller and smaller and smaller, and the next thing you know, you are labeled, oh, you're a Republican, so you automatically stand for big oil. You're against abortion. You're against women's rights. You're against gay. You're against all that, or vice versa. On the other side, you're Democratic. Okay, now you want to raise taxes. You want legalized marijuana. You want to take our guns, and you're against God. Like, it's just like there's no the way it's been going. Particularly in the last 4 years, more than I noticed in the other years, is that it is becoming more smaller and smaller. Are people seeing through that spectrum? Like you're saying is like, okay, like look, you can see the whole rainbow, right? There's 7 colors, 8 colors, but people are now only looking at the fucking blue or the red, and they're just in that fucking little small narrow thing, and they can't get out of that and see the whole rainbow as it is. That is where I argue that we do need more than 2 parties, because. And that's just my opinion personally. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong either. But it's getting to a point where it's like you're one or the other, and you're polarizing one or the other. I mean, and I don't think it'll change. It obviously didn't change this election for Biden. Joe Jorgensen got 1.1% vote. I think she needed 5% vote to get into the next year. I don't think it'll happen. I didn't think it would happen this election just because of the stakes were so high for the Democratic Party was so adamant on just getting anyone in but Trump that it was very obvious to me that they were going to unite no matter what, who it was. My only hope, though, is I hope that doesn't carry on to the next election when we don't have Donald Trump now, unless he runs again, which would be crazy. I could see him doing that for starters. Yeah. But we'll see. But if it isn't, if it's Joe Biden's done, he throws the hat in the bag, and it's somebody running on the Democratic side and somebody else running on the Republican side, it could be one of the first years where we have enough people that are like, I don't really, either one, both of them don't really satisfy my views. This third person might. And again, the stakes are not as high because you hope the Republicans put somebody that's more establishment, quote unquote, not crazy. And the same thing with the Democrats. So it's not like one or the other, and everyone just landslides the other way. And I think, again, me personally, this is just my view. I think that's needed because I think these two parties, as much as we agree that they are a spectrum, they're not viewed that way. The reality of it is they're not viewed that way anymore. They're viewed as this or this. We can't have that in a functional society because it just creates this argument. I mean, like, I know people that are like, yeah, I won't talk to him because he's Republican, or I know people that are Republican and are like, I won't talk to them because they're Democrat. And to me, that's like lunacy. Like that's just not ever gonna make any situation better for us.
So I think where we stand right here is you've nailed the hammer on the head of what the issue is. So we know what the issue is. I just don't believe that the solution then becomes multiple parties. So we know that the problem isn't necessarily the two-party system, but it becomes how the people view it. The crux of the issue is how do people view other people or candidates, okay? And it becomes easier for them to conceptualize a candidate if they're in the red or blue category. I think what needs to happen is a much more educated populace that knows what's going on. I mean, you got to realize, like, we just had an election. We're going to have our president. And if you were to ask every person or even the average person, what does Biden believe? Don't tell me who he is as a person. Don't tell me what he's done. Don't tell me what anything that's happened in his past. Tell me what his policy is. I don't think they're going to be able to give you a solid answer. And I think the same might be true of Trump. Even, like, to as much as I disagree with the guy, the other people who disagree with him just hate him as a person. And that is a perfectly good hill to die on. But if you don't know what he's standing for, your your voice is kind of like diluted. Is that really all you're voting him out to be? So I think the problem, you're right on. We we need to be more aware of what the options are. I just don't know if a third party, because say you have a third party, let's best case scenario they get 40% of the vote, then that's enough to get you in. But if you've got 60% who feel a different way, then I don't know if that's the best thing for the country. I think the best thing for us is to have a more educated voter group. We also need to be voting out in more numbers. I think it's a travesty that we don't have an actual day off to go and vote. I think, I mean, the level of voter suppression, I believe, it's mind-boggling to me. Um, we just don't really hold dear the voting process the way other countries do, and we're not as engaged and informed as we should be. So I think that's our first problem.
So,
And I think if we're able to fix that problem, then the issue of red versus blue wouldn't be too much of an issue. And then the next thing I want to get to is this thing that, I mean, to quote Obama, we're a democracy, but like we're not like other countries which make. I mean, you look at a communist regime that might not work down in South America or something, and they have a coup because that's not a good thing for them. They completely flip the switch, and you go through cycles of just flip flopping so hard. I personally, although I mean I'm pretty far left, I think there's also some merit to the we have to move in increments. We can't really just flip the script very hard. There has to be. Uh, I think people always view third party as maybe a silver bullet, and if we had something like this, we'd be able to really change. But I think I don't think that exists, and I think when you have um, a red versus blue where the red is limited because maybe they won an election, but the blue is really holding their feet to the fire, or vice versa, then they can only move in increments. And I think you make your best decision making there, because otherwise, if you move too far and you're able to make a lot of big decisions very, very fast, I'm not too sure if that's the
my
best thing for the
I
country.
so